Now we're going to move to September 4th, the day of the shooting. Were you again still in Ben Hill?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you talk to the defendant that morning of September 4th?
Yes.
And what happened when you talked to him?
He basically told me that Colt had sent him some strange text messages. I told him I had not gotten any text messages from Colt, and so he sent me what Colt had sent him. At the time, I was in the car with my mom. I don't even remember what we were doing, but I shared them with her, and from there, we just kind of discussed what the text messages were, and I wanted, to find out what was going on quickly, because reading the text messages, just like he could tell, I could tell there was a tone to it, and they were like kind of really short, and they weren't normal Colt texts, so you could tell something was not right. So I tried texting Colt, I think first, couldn't get a response. I never actually got a text from Colt himself until after I had started trying to call the school and talk to the school.
And when you called the school, were you able to talk to somebody?
Yes.
And who did you talk to?
I talked to Miss Lisa, his guidance counselor that I called on Thursday the week before.
And at this time, I'm going to display that phone call from State Exhibit 159, Marcee Gray's cell phone extraction, and it's from the timeline portion of that exhibit. So you call the school at 9:50 a.m. and speak to Miss Butler for 8 minutes and 57 seconds.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what y'all talked about.
Well, she started out by apologizing. She said that in the 30 minutes that she was with the other parents, that prior Thursday she had misplaced my phone number. So then I went ahead and just kind of covered some of what had been going on with Colt, told her about the anxiety, told her about some of the issues between him and his dad. I told her a number of different things. I actually had a list written in a notebook that I had at the time, and then she went on to tell me that basically it was ironic that I had called her because his first period teacher had sent her an email saying that Colt had been asking questions about active shooter drills. This, like I said, was in the period prior to where he was at that time. When she told me that, I said, okay, well, we need to cut this phone call off right now, and y'all need to go locate my son and find out what's going on.
Did you tell her that he had access to guns?
Yes, I don't remember how I worded it, but I did tell her about the guns in the house, and that him and his dad, enjoyed shooting guns at the gun range, and it was like a hobby. And so she said, okay, well, I'll see if I can't find somebody to track him down. And I didn't feel like I couldn't hear urgency in her voice. And I said, I need you to take this seriously. I need you to put down what you're doing, and you need to go find him right now, please. And so we got off the phone.
And after you got off the phone, you said that Colt did text you.
Yes, he did text me. He basically texted me almost exactly what he had originally texted his dad earlier.
And I'm going to go ahead and display that text from 10:02 on September 4th, where he says, "I'm sorry." Okay. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So at this point, are you concerned?
Very, very concerned.
And I'm going to pull up some more text that you sent to your mother and to the defendant from 10:17 on September 4th. Up there on the right, you say, you should probably go ahead and make arrangements to leave work. And then at 10:18, you text the defendant, they're going to need you at the school. So at this point, the school shooting has not started. Tell me why you're telling him he needs to go ahead and go to school.
I think primarily it was just because I knew something was going on with Colt. What that something was, I had no idea. Whether he was just having another panic attack episode, because in the month or so leading up to this, there had been several times where he was having really bad anxiety at school, and so he would leave class and just go sit in the guidance counselor's office. I didn't know if he was going to hurt himself, hurt someone else. I really had no idea what was going on, but I knew something was not right. And I knew at the very least the defendant was going to need to go to the school to find out what was going on with Colt.
Okay. And so, and you had some concern that he may have brought the gun to school, right?
Honestly, that crossed my mind after I knew that they were having like active shooter stuff going on. I won't say that crossed my mind initially when I was reading the text and stuff. Okay. My mind didn't immediately go to the gun.
But eventually it did.
Sure.
And then at 11:32 that morning, you Google Apalachee High School active shooter. And that's when it pops up that a Georgia school is on lockdown amid reports of an active shooter. Is that right?
Yes, I had already tried to call the school multiple times and no one was answering. So then I tried calling my daughter's school, which was right there by the high school, and nobody was answering there. So that's when I Googled the...
And when you Googled it and found that there was an active shooter, you sent the defendant a text message at 11:34, and it says, "It's already on the news." At that point, did y'all know what had happened?
Yeah, I don't think you have to have a whole lot of sense to know what had happened at that point.
And at 11:34, you talked to the defendant. And then you talked to him again at 12:22. What did y'all talk about?
Honestly, I probably couldn't tell you exactly what was said. Actually, I do know one thing that came up. I called him at one point to find out if he was at the school, if he had made it to the school or not. And he said, well, I didn't go to the school. I'm going to the house, or I'm at the house. And I said, why are you at the house? And he said, well, I said, you need to be at the school, you know. We have 2 other children. And he said he wanted to see if the Colt's gun was at the house.
During that phone conversation, did he express any concern for Colt's well-being?
No.
Did you drive up to Bear County that day?
Yes, my mom drove, but I rode with her. We left pretty shortly after it started being reported on.
And is it fair to say before Colt's name was released, you knew that Colt was the shooter? Is that fair to say?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that you and the defendant, after you left and went back to Fitzgerald, y'all continued to communicate about Colt and the issues he was having. Is that correct?
Prior to the shooting.
One of those issues was that he wasn't going to school, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to pull up from State's Exhibit 159 a search that you did on August 29th, which was a couple of days before that Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go back to the on page 7. So you Googled truancy laws in Georgia at 10 o'clock on August 29th. Mm-hmm. Were you concerned about kind of who could get in trouble if Colt didn't go to school?
No, I can actually tell you exactly why I looked this up. So Colin was also concerned about Colt not going to school. And he had called and basically told me an idea that he had to try and get Colt to go to school. And he was going to call me, or he was going to have me call him and pretend to be someone from the truancy office. And he was going to have the conversation where Colt could hear him talking to me on the phone, to try and scare him into thinking, you know, he was going to be truant and get in trouble. And so that's why I looked up truancy laws, because there was a question I had about his plan, and whether or not it would really make any sense or not, because, you know, Colt's a smart kid, and I didn't want him to get online and look something up and be like, what are you doing? I know that's not the truancy officer or whatever. So that's why I was looking that up.
So that was around 10 on August 29th. And then at 2:30 is when you text Colt and ask him how he's doing. And if you could bring up those texts again. So the text messages. Page 25. All right. So at 2:37 p.m., you say, "You out there, Colty?" And then he responds at 2:38, "Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. It's just getting worse. Had to take another. I'll make it to school. Trust." About 20 minutes later, at 3 o'clock, you Google school shooter parents charged with manslaughter. And then at 3 o'clock, you read an article that says what James Crumbly's manslaughter conviction means for parents. And then at 3:05, you search again, school shooter parents charged with manslaughter. Tell me why you were searching that.
They had just come out with a documentary about those parents, and Colt and I had actually watched it before I went home and had some discussions about it. And I think the actual reason I looked it up is because we didn't know what the outcome of it was.
So you had seen a documentary with Colt before you went back to Fitzgerald?
Yes.
About the parents?
I think go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And it talked about why the parents were charged. Ethan Crumbly's parents were charged?
Yes.
Okay. So if that's what the documentary was about, then why at 3:05 did you Google why were Ethan Crumbly's parents charged? If you learned that from the documentary.
I have no idea. I mean, I obviously had more questions about it even after the documentary, you know.
And then you went to an article that said what led to James and Jennifer Crumbly's guilty verdict and read that. Does that sound accurate?
Probably. I mean, once you Google something, it comes up with a million different things, and just click on everything you see.
Okay. And let's see, at 3:09, you actually Google safe storage gun laws in Georgia. Why did you Google that?
It could have been something that came from what I was reading about the Crumbly parents. It could have been me looking for a way to get Colin to store the guns legally. I don't know. I can't tell you exactly.
Okay. Because the Crumbly parents were charged because they didn't secure their weapons,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Objection, Judge. The DA is testifying.
I asked her if that was correct, and she said yes. I'm trying to give context to her searches.
Objection, lead.
Well, I think in this particular instance, I think it's okay to lead.
Well, I'll sustain the lead on the question. Ask me the question.
Okay. Next, you visited a website for safe storage gun laws in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So you were specifically looking up gun laws for Georgia. Can you tell us why you wanted to know about that?
Probably because the guns in Colin's house were not being stored in any way.
Okay. And then you went to a website that says secure storage or child access prevention required. So you went to a website specifically about preventing children from getting access to firearms.
Yes.
Was that the same reason you went to that website?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, because my kids are in the house with the guns.
So after you Googled why the Crumblies were charged with manslaughter and then also looked at safe storage laws in Georgia, you had a conversation with the defendant. And that would have been at 3:55 for 14 minutes. Surely you brought up what you had found out in that conversation. Is that accurate or not accurate?
Probably. Honestly, I can't remember what we talked about. It depends on really the reason I was looking it up. You know, if I wanted to try and find something to convince him to lock the guns up, then yeah, I probably would have shared something with him. If it didn't prove my reasoning for wanting the guns put up, then I probably didn't bother sharing it with him.
Would the fact that you found a case where parents were charged where a child shot someone, would that be something that you would want to tell him in order to put the guns up?
Oh, sure. But I mean, I think he was already aware, I mean, of that case. He didn't watch the documentary, I don't think, but.
Okay. And so y'all talked for 14 minutes from 3:55 to about 4:10. And then at 4:11, you once again looked up what led to James and Jennifer Crumbly's guilty verdict. Why did you look it up again right after you got off the phone with the defendant?
I have no idea. I'm sure it had something to do with what we talked about.
Okay. And then you had 6 more conversations with the defendant that day. August 29th into the evening. So you have at 4:19, at 4:21, at 5:03, at 5:12, at 5:31, and at 5:41, you're talking to the defendant. You testified earlier that when you talked to the defendant on Friday, August 29th, in the evening, his attitude changed because y'all got into a disagreement about him putting the guns up. Did your searches prompt that discussion?
Probably.
Okay. And so you, on this date, testified that you told him to put the guns up. And
Yeah.
what did he tell you?
He told me, well, I had one comment that I remember specifically. He said that if he went in Colt's room and tried to take his gun to put it up, that it would basically cause a shitstorm, indicating he didn't want to take his gun away because he didn't want to deal with it.
I don't have anything further. Thank you.